Look, I opened this jar of rotten baby food, and well, a butterfly came out.
But will you do a parody of Pepto-Bismol doing a
Yes.
commercial
Like if
with
they're
you in
like
it?
if they're like, hey, well, you could write whatever you want.
Hmm.
You could, you can.
There is one. I'm not going to explain. Yeah, let's could leave it there.
I
But
was gonna say a phrase that
it's
went
been done
perfectly
already.
well with what I'm talking about, and I was like, I don't know if I could say it on here.
Welcome to the Comedians in Elevators podcast. I've got my guest, Allie Palazzo. Allie, say hi, introduce yourself, and tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hi. I'm Allie Palazzo. I've been in the film industry for about 6 years now. And I started acting 10 years ago in theater, and everything's just been going from there. And yeah, so I'm excited to be here.
Very cool. Very cool. Well, sounds like you're ready to get started. So, listen to my regular listeners. I know you don't like when at the beginning of these conversations I ask you to subscribe. None of us like it. I don't like saying it. I don't like it being in here. But it's frustrating. You know what else is frustrating? It's also frustrating when I look in the back end of the YouTube channel and I see that 56% of you that watch frequently haven't yet subscribed. And I know this because I see it in the comments section. You say things like, I didn't know I didn't subscribe. And that's actually what fuels the show. Basically, it's like you're making a donation to the show. So that's why I ask all the time, because it enables us to build and build and build. And we're going for the long term here. Hit the subscribe button and we'll continue to build this show for you. That's my promise. Thank you to all you guys that do subscribe. It means the world to me.
Yeah.
Let me explain what the whole point is of the podcast. So the whole
Sure.
idea is to compare and contrast the comic versus the comedian. So I define the comic as any person telling funny jokes versus the comedian who's a funny person telling
Mhm.
any jokes. So, Ali, would you agree that you start as a comic and evolve into a comedian?
Um, I think so. Yeah. I definitely, I've always tried to keep things lighthearted and funny, and but being a comedian is different because you need the structure, and it's a whole different ball game when you start um doing it for other people.
Okay, so you would think that the comic is doing it just for their friends or really for their own entertainment? Is that how you see the kind of the comic starting out?
Yeah, I mean, I think that, it's a personality trait. I think not everyone kind of has the
Okay.
ability to have that personality trait. It's
Okay,
definitely starts
interesting.
from a natural place. Um, and then once you get into stand up or writing or even producing comedic films or anything like that, it becomes more of a business. So it's a little bit different.
Got it. So you're attaching the business to the comedian more, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Because I think at
Okay.
that point, you're kind of marketing and selling yourself, you
You got it
know?
to the next level. Yeah. All
Yeah,
right. So here's
exactly.
the first question. So it's about the role of persona in comedy. So
Sure.
how much of the comedian's voice is a character versus their real self?
It depends. I think it depends. I mean, I've definitely seen some comedians that are just naturally funny, and they're good at storytelling, and they're kind of true to themselves. And then I see other comedians who pick a character and are just really good at it, and they have the ability to kind of morph into this personality for the stage. It definitely
Hmm.
comes from obviously from a place within, just like other comedians, but um, I think that it's more of a connection to a character, and that kind of pushes them forward, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. Some people are very good at doing both, and then you have, like, for me, like, Adam Sandler, right? He's an amazing comedian.
Hmm.
He's one of the, he's an idol of mine who I love, and um he has his character roles, as you've seen in Waterboy, and you've seen in
Hmm.
other of his early stuff, and then going forward, he also had stuff that hit home and was very near and dear to him that was still funny, and it was more so his personality than him putting on a character.
Hmm.
So I think it's a blend. I think it's whatever kind of works for you, whatever you kind of find yourself drifting towards and what you're most comfortable in. I think it'll work.
So that's an interesting call out with Adam Sandler. So you saying that he's the character, he's choosing the character. So would you say if he's a professional comedian at heart, he's actually choosing comic characters?
Um, in some roles, yeah. I definitely think that he chooses to go outside the box a little bit with his comedy, which I love, and become a separate character that might very well be part of his personality, like internally.
Hmm.
A lot of comedians go into different personalities, and that's part of their shtick, and it's part of how they're able to kind of broaden their audience as well. So I think yeah, it kind of becomes part of who you are, but there is definitely a difference between the two.
Very cool. So would you say that authenticity matters, or is illusion part of the magic?
Um, in a sense, narrative storytelling is an illusion, right? That's kind of how it
Hmm.
all started. And comedy started from like jesters and like jokers and like telling
Uh-oh.
stand-up jokes. So, and they took it from some of their own life, but they also were storytelling. So I feel like it's part of being in the comedy scene is being a storyteller and being able to tell a narrative story and keep people interested.
Okay. All right. Well, it sounds like we got some foreshadowing here. So let's see how true to form it is. So
Okay,
punching up versus punching down. So where do comics versus comedians stand on this? So let me put it in some historical context. Did a
sure.
jealous medieval prince become the first comedian by killing the court jester?
Oh boy. Um, Maybe he was the first punchline.
So is this the
Uh,
first time you heard this question or heard of
it
this
is, I mean,
question?
it is,
Okay,
but
just
I'm
checking.
trying to find a way to like word it within like myself, I guess.
Well, obviously, I asked that because it was the very next question I was going to ask, and you were already alluding to it. So I was just curious where that illusion came from.
I think, it comes from different forms of comedy. I think maybe the
Hmm.
both of the Jester and the Prince could be seen as comedians because the Jester, that's his personality. And it's, when the Prince does that action, I feel like it's almost funny because it's ironic, as awful as that sounds, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
that's kind of where I stand on it.
So the reason why I'm asking it in this particular way is that I do ask this question every time. It's not in the list of questions that I send all my guests, but it is in the videos. So,
Okay.
did you see the video prior to this point?
The episode that you sent me?
Any episode,
Yeah, I mean I've seen bits and pieces of it, yeah.
but not this question,
No,
right?
not this question. No.
But yet you still alluded to it right before I was going to ask it. So my question is this an example of the collective unconscious at work?
Very well could be. I was just discussing this yesterday actually with a group of friends that we went out for dinner. Um Funny enough, we went bowling, which I have not done since I was very young. And
Mm,
there was like a professional bowler next to me in his 80s. He was like professional though for between the 70s and 80s, and he did his thing.
mhm.
And I could feel the energy, and I wanted to bowl when he did. And I think that's, you could feel that collective energy.
For sure. Yeah, definitely
Yeah.
any professional, that's kind of how they did it is they captured something there. So, would you
Yeah.
say that the audience agreement with the comedian is a form of permission or alignment?
Yes, absolutely. I mean,
Okay.
coming from, doing a couple sets myself early on, and being in theater and being in a lot of comedic plays, the audience, you can feel that vibration the moment you step on stage. You could just tell if they're there with you, if they're excited to see you. And that I think gives you the energy to bounce off of that. So,
Mm-hmm.
when you have a really engaged audience, clapping and laughing and engaging with you as a person, it becomes like this whole energetic cycle between in the whole building, I think. And that's one of the reasons I believe live entertainment is still a thing, because even a band, right? A band will play and they'll feel that audience, and it'll be the best show they've ever done. Like, I was just thinking about this with Ozzy's last show before he passed away. He was in a chair, but he didn't move like he would normally, obviously, but you could feel the audience just knowing that that was his last show and giving him that moral and emotional support. And,
Mm-hmm.
you could see that he felt it, and he was singing in a way that he hasn't in years, because I feel like he connected with that energy, and he knew that, this was for his people, and this was like his big finale, I think.
Mm.
So,
Yeah,
yeah.
for sure. So you mentioned comedic theater. So was that like a period piece, like commedia dell'arte, or something more modern?
It was definitely more modern. I've done like I did a lot of musical work, like a
Okay.
lot of theater kids growing up. So I typically like to be in the comedic roles, and as I've gone into film, um I definitely try out for the funny best friend or the goofy ex, or like,
Mm,
it's because I get to jump into someone that I feel I'm really not.
okay.
So, um
Well,
it's
that's
it's
that's
it's
exact. That
fun.
sounds like that's how you're funny, right? Is you're doing
Yeah.
something you think isn't funny, and it is actually, right? Just
Yeah,
because you're
because like if I'm with a group of friends or something, like I try to be quick-witted, and like I try to
all
crack
right.
jokes, and obviously, but if there's a opportunity to come like be outside of myself, if I can
Hmm.
audition for it, that's typically the audition I go for. Um Especially because being typecasted when I was younger, as like, a villain, or like,
Really
yeah, because
interesting.
I'm taller. I have dark
Okay.
hair, dark features, and a lot of the time it was like femme fatale or like
Okay.
villainess. I was never casted as like Cinderella. You know what I
I
mean?
see. I see.
Um,
Okay. That
so
makes sense.
so I as I got older, I was like, I want to be funny, and so I
Well,
am funny.
it
Yeah,
it seems it's pretty obvious, like it's coming from intelligence, right? So if you're highly intelligent, it's going to be easier to be funny, and
yeah,
especially if you're a younger woman and intelligent, I could see that being a kind of villainized, right? So
yeah,
it seems like comedy would be the perfect fit. So
yeah.
that's really good. So that's really good to hear. So let's put it in this context. So crowd work versus craft, or actually, yeah, crowd work versus crafted work. So if
Sure.
comics riff like influencers, I'd argue in the comments section, and comedians perform like in reaction videos, where's the sweet spot?
I would say live entertainment would be the sweet spot, because at that point,
Well,
if you lose your audience, you can't really riff, right? Like you lose that ability to riff off of the energy of someone else. So you need that structure that, like, I feel like typical comics have to get that audience back and to engage
mhm.
them again. So I think you need a little bit of both, and kind of meet in the sweet spot in the middle.
So what happens when a comic leans too much into crowd work or when a comedian gets heckled?
It that's hard because it's all how you handle it, you know?
Hmm.
I mean, if you get angry and you you change the whole vibe of the stage and everyone around, it's it's not funny anymore. And now you just have people like feeling awkward and like, ugh. So if you're intelligent and you kind of, I would say, riff back and forth with the person for a small amount of time, and then just, cut it off. Like, who was it? It was I think it was Matt Rife lately, who I saw. Someone was heckling him, and he was like, well, I didn't pay money to see your show, so maybe you should, and it was like really quick, and it was like, oh, and people laughed, and then the heckler really didn't have much to say at that. So, and it was like quick and kind of rude, but like it wasn't mean necessarily, you know what I mean? Like, I feel like even someone who was heckling could kind of giggle at that, because it's
Hmm.
such a quick reaction.
Would you say it was dismissive because he just moved on to the next thing?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the way to do it. You got to be quick-witted though. Otherwise that's just not going to happen.
Yeah,
So,
because if you engage
uh-huh.
back and forth, it's just you lost the whole thing.
You're not going to win. You have the talking stick, so I don't know why. Yeah, exactly. Why would you engage more than
Exactly.
one time with a heckler? So,
Exactly.
all right. So, cultural translation of comedy. So, how do jokes that work in one country bomb in another?
Oh, this is great. So actually I'm half Puerto Rican. I grew up with Spanish comedians and English comedians.
Hmm.
My mom would see a lot of stand up in Spanish, and then my dad, who was Italian, saw a lot of stand up in English. So I kind of got two perspectives. And even to this day, when I watch like stand up in Spanish, or if I see like a program is what they call them in Spanish, like programa,
Hmm.
um, and it's a lot bigger. It's a lot less dry. It's what you would think like slapstick 80s comedy would be. It's
Sure.
very over the top, which is funny and I love it. It's very over the top, it's very loud, it's very in your face, very colorful. Um, Whereas I think American comedy is and even going into like I love British comedy too because it's very dry.
Hmm.
It's a completely it's very dry, it's almost dark humor, it's very quick. Um and American humor, I think, is in the middle somewhere. It kind of sits in the middle. Because you have those over the top moments, obviously, with like, super bad, and you have like Pineapple Express, and you have all these like huge comedic scenes that are like over the top. Um, but then, you have those passive dry moments that are really funny too. So I think the US is in the middle somewhere, and then again, the Latin community is so I love it. It's so over the top. We're just loud with everything we do. So
So when you call it the program, is that alluding to some kind of like master plot when it comes to culture?
no, the programs are actually that's what they symbolize like stand up and like different comedy shorts. Like they'll do
Hmm.
like live they still have a live studio audience doing a lot of comedy shorts. It's still a big thing there. So
Okay.
they won't call it episodes, they'll call it the program. So, but I do know what you're referring to.
Yeah,
As in
I would
like
think that.
programming to the mass. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, absolutely, because if you're actually using live audiences at the moment in the sitcom style,
Yep.
but it's very comedic, you're working the subconscious level there at a
Oh
larger
yeah.
scale. So
Yeah.
that's how I would see it. All right. So are comics more universal while comedians are more culturally specific?
I think so. I think comics are just the funny guy at the party or the funny girl at the party or the funny they them at the party, and
Hmm.
they're able to just kind of be themselves, where a
Hmm.
comedian I definitely think is has taken that ability and taken it on, I guess, to the next level and marketing themselves with it. So that would be the major difference between for me between the two.
All right. So very important question: advertising and self-promotion. So
Mhm.
who advertises themselves more, the comic, the comedian, or the magician? You know that place where you're not conscious and you're not sleeping either? That's your power bill to the electric company. Right here. I want us to be here with free energy, where the Wardenclyffe Tower meets the Eiffel Tower. But that's not where we are. We are here, where you've got the utility and you've got residential solar. Between these two, we know which one saves you money. This is where we can go in the meantime. But this is where I want us to be now, and this can be done now. So let me deputize you to represent DOSE, Department of Solar Efficiency, and let's get on the podcast and get the message out today. See you soon.
Hmm. I'm gonna have to say the comedian. I'm
No
gonna have to
magician?
the magician, yes. Again though, I feel like it's almost a different aesthetic,
It
you
is
know?
for sure.
Yeah.
For
So
sure.
magicians are definitely over the top and they definitely market themselves a lot. And that's the only way they can gain a following, right? Is doing these insane things and capturing them on camera in front of an audience so people believe what they're talking about. But I feel like comedian is like it's you've made that your kind of work identity,
Hmm.
and that's what you're going forward in as your profession, where a comic can be someone genuinely super funny who might just be in like TikToks that your friends do, or they might blow up on YouTube because, they're just sitting there doing a little bit of commentary on this or, and they're not exactly putting all their eggs in that basket. There's just something they enjoy doing, and it's something that they love to do. And to be funny and lighthearted is just part of their personality. Where comedians like, I recognize this about myself. Now I'm going to put it to use, and I'm going to go forward and actually make like like a whole work plan based off it.
Yeah, that does sound familiar. So is self-promotion seen as selling out or is it necessary for survival?
At this point in the game, I don't necessarily think it's selling out.
So
Um,
there is still a little bit there, right? There is a purity that you still strive for, I guess. Is that right?
yeah, because there is the ability to sell out, right? There's like self-promoting right now is so big because we're dealing with a lot of people within like the millennial and Gen Z levels coming in, and they have to self-promote because that is the only way to get seen anymore.
Mm,
A lot of the times there's issues with like, different agents and managers and stuff, and you can still do all that, which is great. But a lot of it is self-promotion and a lot of it is getting that online presence and gaining somewhat of a following. I don't think that's selling out if you're being genuine and you stick to your platform. I do think it is selling out if, you sell your aesthetic for like T-Mobile or something. You
mm.
know what I mean?
So,
Um,
for example, so you got a new background here that is motivated totally by your aesthetic, right? So
yeah.
would that be selling out if you literally sell it? You're like, hey, this is my background, and everyone's like, that's right, that's yours. But
Um,
now it's going to be seen everywhere else as in the elevator.
yeah. I don't think that's selling out because I'm willing to like share it and just be like, yeah, I love pink. Everyone should love pink, but pink is my aesthetic. Like when I go into production meetings and stuff, and if I'm on set, um, I will have a pink folder or like, when I applied for jobs 10 years ago or,
Mm-hmm.
auditioned 10 years ago when we were still doing paper, and live auditions
Mm-hmm.
pre-COVID. Um, Everything was pink. So like my resume was powder pink. And it definitely stuck out. But I think that's just being genuine to my aesthetic. Now, if Pepto-Bismol was like, "Hey, you do everything pink. Will you do a commercial for
Ha!
us?"
Yeah.
I'd be
See.
like, I I I don't know. Like
All
I
right,
just
but Beady will beady you beady do a
yeah.
beady. Parody of Pepto Bismol doing a
Yes.
commercial
Like if
with
they're
you in
like
it?
if they're like, "Hey, well, you could write whatever you want.
Hmm.
You could you can."
There is one. I'm not gonna explain. Yeah, let's could leave it there.
I
But
was gonna say a phrase that
it's
went
been done
perfectly
already.
well with what I'm talking about, and I was like, I don't know if I could say it on here.
You
Um,
could say it, but it's been done already, so you don't have to go into the details. But it
yeah,
was funny.
exactly.
It actually was very funny. So there is something there. So you definitely have a point. And I gotta mention, the color scheme in the background and your skin tone match almost exactly.
Oh, I
So
love
on
that.
this on the screen, right? So when it comes to this 2D two-dimensional image, I mean, it's there when it comes to aesthetics. So it's very that's very interesting that it does actually it fits, and you know that, no surprise, right? Obviously.
Yeah,
So censorship and offense. So does a comic
sure.
avoid offense while a comedian courts it to prove a point, like a magician?
Oh boy. Um, I think that's I think that depends on where you're okay. So to kind of answer your question, I being female, being Latin, and being part of the LGBTQ community, I feel like those are all free for alls for me. So I can make any joke around that and I
Mm-hmm.
should be safe. You know what I mean? Because I'm also living it. Um, but if you're not part of the community, I think it's hard to
Mm.
make jokes and have it be appropriate. You know what I mean? But at the same time, some people come up with stuff and you're like, oh my God. Like it's so out of left field that you laugh, even though you shouldn't. And you're like, oh my God, you know? Um,
Mm-hmm.
so it's kind of a trick question because, I feel like if you've been through it, it's kind
Mm-hmm.
of a free for all. You know what I mean? Like I can make I crack, very Hispanic jokes all the time. And people are like, oh, because my name is Allie Palazzo, they don't think. And then being, Puerto Rican, I'm like, I feel like I'm allowed to say these things. Um, but I would never comment on another person's race, ethnicity, sexual
Mm.
orientation, upbringing. Like I feel like there's some lines that shouldn't be crossed.
All right.
Um,
Well, let's test
yeah,
one right here. Let me throw one out at you, see if conceptually where it goes.
sure.
So I'm going to argue that there's going to be a historical event when it comes to aliens and hybrids, alien human hybrids that are already
Yes.
here. Now, would you claim to be an alien human hybrid for a joke?
Can I get testing done?
No, no. I mean, there's going to be, let's put it in a context like in
Oh, I
this
see what you're saying.
potential
So if it,
scenario, like there's a new cultural situation. You don't know if it's real because AI could fake the whole thing. But
yup, okay.
you also can argue that, all right, actually, now the government is saying there are humans, alien human hybrids. They've been here for, hundreds of years or longer. And so now you just start identifying as one because anyone could look like it, more or less, like an alien
Yeah.
human hybrid. So would you take the risk of making that joke?
Yeah, I mean,
And you may
that's
not even
something
know. Now, they argue they all know that they're hybrids, but you can argue they
that
don't.
I know I'm a hybrid and have
You
no
don't
idea
know.
whether
You
I'm
don't
lying
know
or
if
not.
it is, right? So would you
Yeah.
make that joke? Would you dare to do it?
Yeah, that's so for me, I guess that's so out of pocket that I probably could. Like, you
Okay.
know what I mean? That's just so outlandish for me to be like I'm a lizard person. But I
Yeah.
would go up to someone 100% and just look them dead in the eye and be like, I'm a lizard person. So,
Yeah. And I'm messing
you
with
know,
your perception so you don't actually see my real form.
exactly.
Hmm. All
You know
right.
what I mean? Like I change after midnight. But that's also writing narrative films, I feel like, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
I can play this half alien, half person in a narrative film and crack jokes about it, you know? Um, someone who believes they're a werewolf, like
Mm-hmm.
that's
I
it's
mean,
hysterical.
being realistic, yours would probably be the pink creatures. I mean, it's pretty
Yeah.
much right.
Honestly, I think I'm the queen of the pink creatures, if not at least the princess. You know what I mean?
Okay, so there you go. I mean, there it is right there. So we got a whole new character genre that you can build around, right? That's the whole
Exactly.
point. All right, so who survives better in a cancel culture environment? The comic, comedian, magician, or mudslinger?
Comedian. I think the
We already kind of
comedian.
covered it, we
Yeah, I
pretty
think
much
the
see why.
comedian because um I mean obviously they're gonna do what sells and I think a lot of them don't want to be canceled out, so they're not gonna push the boundary too
Hmm.
much. Where the comic
Okay.
could be your funny uncle and you're like, uncle, you're not supposed to say that.
Right.
You don't say that in public. Don't say that in public. You know what I mean? And that's a comic. So, okay, like I said, a comedian is very, to me, also business oriented, marketing oriented. So they're not going
Right.
to do something that's going to cancel out their whole platform, especially if they built it. And if they do, I feel like it's almost like a ploy, like they do it purposely. Like let's say they have like a shadow moment in their career and like they're not selling a lot of tickets or they're not getting a lot of views or they're not someone without
Mm.
dignity is, I mean, sorry to put it that way, but someone without self-respect can be like, oh, but if I make this outlandish comment, people are going to eat that up because no press,
Right.
there is no such thing as bad press, but there is.
So you're
Um,
saying like a comedian who's now downgrading themselves into becoming a comic, telling those private racist jokes now out loud because he's just not funny anymore, but he had a name that people recognize. He wants to get back to glory.
yeah,
All right. I think this has happened many times before in history.
it's
So
happened a lot. It's happened a lot. It's happened a lot. And, um, I think that kind of highlighting those comedians and kind of having them brought to light. Um, I, I think there's some jokes that you can't say. And I know people have argued that with me a bunch, comedians kind of are
mm,
allowed to say whatever they want to say. It's part of their job. But I think
should be
that there
should be
are
allowed, right? Would you agree that it's for free speech 100%? Mm.
if you
It's their choice. It's their choice. What I'm saying, it's the
yeah.
or comedian's choice. It's not, if they don't want to do it, they don't have to, but they should be able to, even no matter how ridiculous and stupid and racist and whatever horrible thing you can say it is, should they still be allowed to say it?
Allowed is a tricky way of putting it. I think every action has a reaction where it's like, okay, you have your freedom of speech, you could say what you want, but that doesn't mean you're not going to get a reaction from it. So,
I'm putting in the context, say in Germany, you can't make Nazi jokes. You can't make Hitler jokes. Like it's
okay.
illegal, right? So if you look at it from that perspective,
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I might get a lot of backlash for that. I don't know if it should be illegal. Um, I definitely don't think. I wouldn't pay myself to go see Nazi jokes, I
No, no,
don't
no,
think.
no, no.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that. I'm saying like the idea, not the whole set is that, but the idea that you're allowed or not allowed, right? That
Sure.
it kind of paints everything, right? I mean, if you go see any performance in Germany, it's always going to have this undertone of Hitler and Nazi and World War II, and people are, they're just suppressed. They don't even want to think because of this, and it's ridiculous. I'm arguing. I'm going to get off my soapbox, but the idea is, do you agree or not?
It depends on who the comedian is. Is the comedian actually just an angry racist who
Right.
wants Nazi Germany back, or is it someone of Jewish heritage that is making light of something that's horrible from their history? But again, they're allowed to say it because of their historical background. So, like,
Right.
if it's a Jewish comedian, he's like, or she's like, they make this joke, and people are like, "Whoa!" And then it's like, but I can say that because you know, that was my grandmother's existence or that was my grandfather's existence or whatever the case may be. I think they at that point, yes. If you're making jokes like that and you have no ground to stand on, I just don't understand why you'd want to do that. I don't know if it should be illegal, but I think that, it's like it's illegal to yell fire when there's nothing burning in a theater, right?
It's illegal.
It's illegal. Exactly. It is
Right.
illegal. So the same concept kind of goes where it's like if you want to be that a-hole, if I can't put it any other way, if
Sure.
you want to be that person, um again, there's going to be reactions to your actions. And let's say like you make this awful joke about racism and then, outside of your concert, someone acts in a way that's racistly based, right?
Right,
And you
right,
kind of gave
right.
them that fuel to the fire. Is it illegal that you said it? No. Is it your fault that they made that action? No. But you're putting that into existence. You put that energy out in there. You kind of click something in someone's mind. So should it be illegal? No. Should we condone that kind of behavior? No.
You're getting very. I didn't mean it to be political. I know it kind of went there a little bit,
No, it's
but
all
I
right.
think, I think, I
I'm
think,
very open to talking. I'm very, yeah.
yeah, which is good. Thank God. So let's put it in some more context. So comedy is commentary. So when does a comedian cross into being a philosopher or a preacher?
I mean, I think Jim Jones might have made that apparent, but
Oh, wait a minute. Is that comedy
yeah.
related?
It, maybe he was funny at some point, not
Okay.
at the end. Um, but I think when there is some philosophy in stand up, I think, especially with like the more seasoned um comedians, and sometimes they have a different platform where they'll do like a podcast and they'll be more authentic to themselves and not be as funny or showboaty, and that's also part of their platform. So I think with when you have self-distribution and you have self-representation online, you can do a bunch of different things and still be your main label be comedian because that's how you started, that's how you make the majority of your money, and that's your biggest goal. But you can become a philosopher, can become like an activist in your spare time or incorporate it into your stand up. And I think it's actually some people hate it, some people do hate it. I think sometimes it'll bring the peaceful circle. So it all depends. Again, it depends on the vibe you're looking for because people are so different. Like, you have comedians that just want to make you laugh, and that's great. And that's awesome. And they're like, that's what I'm doing, and that's what I'm happy with. And then you have other comedians that will go into politics. They will go into racism. They will go into a bunch of, you know, very real, important topics. And but they'll bring it back. And the few and far between, but some of them are very talented at doing that. Like very talented. And again, it'll gain more momentum, I think. So like not to throw anyone under the bus, but like I used to be a big Dave Chappelle fan, huge
Hmm.
Dave Chappelle fan. And but I have people in a certain community that he commented on his Netflix
Hmm.
special, and I can't follow him anymore. Now, do I want him to flounder and not make any money, that's not up to me. I'm not God. I can't play God. It's not my responsibility. But all I can say is if it comes to a certain point and I don't agree with it, I'll just turn it off. And I think there's a web of energy in the world that will level out what needs to be leveled out.
So you're talking about like cosmic justice.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. So would you think it's a game you should play with the universe? I think Dave Chappelle is definitely doing that. So you're arguing that is should he be
What a
canceled over
stupid
something like that?
question.
Well, he's not part of the community, so I canceled him out.
Okay.
And because again, some of my best friends are part of that community and they're fighting for their rights, which they should, in my opinion, they should definitely have. They're not hurting anyone, they're not doing anything. If you want to make jokes about it, I just, to me, it's like, come on, there's stuff you can make jokes about. Dave Chappelle, you had a 20-year career where you never even touched upon anything political, and all of a sudden you're getting
Hmm.
involved in this crazy political commentary. Like, for what? It's for clicks. It's for clicks. Sorry. Dave Chappelle
No,
was not,
100%.
you
So,
he,
but can you
yeah,
imagine can you imagine this new potential scenario that I'm coming up with here with the human hybrids becoming a
sure.
real thing, alien
Yes.
human hybrids, and now that's the new version of this situation,
Okay.
right? Because there'll be people that say, "Oh, I don't know if I'm a hybrid," and then they find out they are through whatever means, either medically or through being told by actual aliens, or they just decide on their own or whatever. We don't even know
Sure.
how it's going to play out, right? Could that
Yeah,
not potentially be another exact situation culturally as this one?
sure. And I think it would, you know, as long as you're not hurting anybody and you're minding your business, that should not be, if I was half alien hybrid, as long as I'm still trying to be a good person and trying to, do the best I can in life, and I made that choice that I want to become half hybrid, you know,
Or become half hybrid. Exactly, exactly. Right. You can actually choose in this new
yeah,
scenario. But yeah, exactly. All right. So I see it as the next exact situation happening will potentially happen again. It'll be like a cycle culturally, just a replay. And so
sure.
this will be interesting. So we've got a tradition on the Comedians in Elevators podcast where the previous guest asks a question for the future guest. And
Okay.
so the previous guest, his name was Pero Blazik. He pronounces it a little differently, but he's Serbian, so it's hard to pronounce. I like the way
Okay.
he says it. So his question for you, Allie, which he doesn't know yet, is where would you live if you could live anywhere in the world and why?
Anywhere in the world. I would like to live. I would like to live in Puerto Rico because right now I feel like there's a lot of stuff going on in Puerto Rico that needs help, and I want to be closer to my culture. And also, the beaches, and my mom was born and bred there, and I've spent time there growing up. So it's a second, and to me, it's a second home for one, and for two, just like the culture, and you're still close enough to home where you can come back. But that's probably where I would live right now.
Very cool. Very cool. Well, Allie, where can everybody find you online?
So you can find me on LinkedIn, Allie Palazzo, Allie T on Instagram with the underscore, or on Facebook. I have, those are my three large presents right now.
Very cool. Very cool. Well, Allie, thank you so much for me being my guest. And for everybody else, please like and subscribe, and we will see you in the next one.
Awesome. Thank you.